Bueno, aquí ingresamos.
So bear with us a bit. We are live on Zoom and we are going also live on LinkedIn. I'm going to activate the chat. Andre, if you have a question, please type there. If still not satisfied, we'll open also the face-to-face communication. Give me a moment. Okay. Now everyone can type in the chat. So once again, greetings to all arriving participants. I hope you can hear me, right? Desir, you can hear me well?
Yep, I can hear you well.
Okay. Give me a sec. So as I said, we're live on Zoom, and also it seems to me that on LinkedIn as well. Let me check that too to make sure that our streaming is on and everybody's happy, because we had a couple of times some issues. Awesome. Yes, we're live also on LinkedIn streaming. Also, thank you everyone for understanding since we could not broadcast last week due to our speaker's health. I'm happy to see Jazir in health, and I'm thrilled to welcome actually today's speaker, Jazir Jamal. Hi, Jazir.
Hey, Manish, thank you for having me here.
Thank you for your time, and I'm happy that you're recovered, as we spoke, not fully, but stay recovering. And just for the participants who don't know Jazir, he's the founder of Grow Valley, a hybrid venture studio specializing in public-private venture building based out of the United Arab Emirates. And what is the public-private venture building? We will be exploring in a bit. That's basically the primary reason why we asked Jazir to join for our today's panel. Meanwhile, I kindly ask everyone for a couple of seconds of your patience, not attention, also attention, because I'm going to post a couple of things in the chat and to finish the final technical checks. I know it's a bit annoying, and I appreciate everyone's time. So the chat is open for all the conversations. Then we have also a section for Q&A, which is basically for the, yes, Craig, thanks. Can you try now? Because I've opened the chat. It should be active now. Jazir, can you try to type something like hi?
Sure. 1 second. I think no. I think it's no. I think it's disabled. The chat is disabled for some reason.
Because I can see. Okay, let me try to do it again.
It was on. It's a few seconds ago, and then it just went off.
Okay, let's try again. Awesome. Now it's working. Perfect.
Yeah, it's working now.
That's beautiful, because everybody now can introduce themselves in the chat, mentioning also their activity, if it's a startup studio, investment, where they are located, anything relevant that might help other attendees to connect with them. And please also, you can share any links, let's say, started from your company, and also LinkedIn, obviously, so we can connect. Sorry, I'm a bit slow here. Be kindly informed that the session is broadcasted as, again, by LinkedIn, but also we are being recorded here. Usually the recordings of the sessions are being reserved for Studio Hub Premium members. However, you can request access to this particular session. Although unedited version, the link, it's unedited version in the chat, and I'm going to post also the link of the chat of Studio Hub community conversations. So join Startup Studio and Venture Builder direct communication channel, which previously also has been reserved for premium members, and we opened it to get the latest insights or to deliver the latest insights into our original content and industry opportunities. The presentation part will take about 30 minutes, a bit more, and then everyone is invited to ask their questions to Jazir or me, preferably to Jazir. In the Q&A section, we can read and then go through all the questions, and the session is maximum 1 hour. And then if there are some unanswered questions, we can come back to them later. I'm also posting the LinkedIn broadcast in case somebody is interested to share it with their friends, house. And I think we're done with the technical checks. Hi, Julian. Happy to see you. Okay, I think you're ready. If you're ready, Jazir, I'll do just a small introduction. Let's say officially open the session. So thank you everyone for your patience again with the administrative part. And before we move forward, I would like to do a brief introduction to Jazir Jamal. On top of leading Grow Valley, Jazir is also a serial entrepreneur, investor, and business advisor, and we're looking forward to his first authored book about public-private business modeling of venture studios. If nothing has changed, Jazir, you still have that plan?
Yes, I do.
We will present more on his track record in venture building and Grow Valley model. If you're interested, today Jazir is very humble compared to most of the speakers. I'm just kidding. He just preferred to speak more on the model, and then if you or anybody has questions, we can write them directly to Jazir or hear about his previous activities. So I will talk about the part that will not be mentioned here. Jazir has a long history of various business locations, from US to Dubai. There more Jazir, you're free to share, and has a very good understanding of diverse ecosystems, diverse innovation, and venture building ecosystems. We also share another passion with Jazir. It is supercars, or actually that was my past passion, and sorry of mentioning it so frequently because it was a past hobby. Now I'm not interested very much, but we've been with Jazir in contact for some time now, and I always had this debate about startup studio model with Jazir, if it can be private, a public-private, if the startup studio can function that way. And the concept of venture builder does not limit, of course, the source of funding. However, I guess the main topic of discussion has been the exit strategy of the startup studio, considering that in the classical startup studio model, basically aim for exits. Jazir, however, has his a little bit different perspective on that, and I'm interested to hear how that can function. Just to mention that as one of the startup studio model pioneers, Studio Hub seeks not to concentrate on the limited scope and the exact definition, but trying to instead explore ways for its expansion and innovation, because that's what we are, innovators. Thank you everyone being here, and Jazir, we're all ears.
Thank you very much, Manoj, for having me here. And would love to start the presentation. I think I can share the screen right now, right? Awesome. So I'm just going to pull up the screen. Let me know if everybody sees the screen or not.
It's being shared. The moment we see it, awesome.
Can everybody see it?
I think so. Let me check also on the chat. Yeah. I think we are.
Not everybody can see. Awesome. All right. Thank you, guys. Just gonna quickly So we call ourselves a hybrid venture studio where we invest and build game-changing ventures with influential partners to leverage extraordinary growth. Where you see something here is that we don't build any ventures independently. Every ventures we built with influential partners, and we handpick those influential partners so that we can leverage an extraordinary growth, which is inorganic growth. And I'll tell you what we mean by that. So before we even get deeper into understanding of what is a hybrid venture studio and what we've done so far to get what we are today, I want us to, I want you to give, to give you a brief understanding of how we really got here. Like any other venture studio is always in the hunt of figuring out the right model. We also went through the same thing. So our problems made us to be what we are today. So we say that the problems that we faced in the past made us to be whatever we are today. So technically, like any other venture studios out there, they're looking at almost typically about 6 problems. That is, number one, the lack of capital. Second is lack of revenues. Third, lack of dedicated team. Fourth, lack of enough ideas. Number 5, lack of co-founders to co-build with them. And the last most important thing, which is a lack of right exit strategies. Now, innovating each of these areas is where we became what we are today. And that's been a journey. And it's been a wave of journey. Like, as we talk about the wave of venture studios out there, we ourselves went through 3 different waves. So we started our venture studio journey as an agency where we were offering services to the open market, where we wanted to create some operating revenues at the same time gain experience of how to build 0 to 1 ventures. So we started off as an agency to start with, and then we eventually started to build our own ventures, which was more like a parallel activity at the same time. We started to focus more once we started to gain more experience building it for the others. And eventually we became a hybrid venture studio where we do a mix of all these different kinds of services and building on ventures. But the difference is we cracked a new model, which is one of them is the public-private venture studios, and others is joint venture building models. So what is a public-private venture building? It's something that a lot of people come and ask us, okay, what does it really mean to be public-private venture building? Is it the same like a corporate venture building? Is it that you give a services to the government and so on? Well, it's a bit complicated, because when you're dealing with the government, it's completely different to when we're talking about corporates who's ready to receive innovation and ready to receive a kind of partnership models. Unlike government, which is filled with compliance and legal complexities and not accepting to work with the private. So it's a very different model to work with as a whole. So what is a public-private venture building? So in a nutshell, it's a venture building with the government by turning their problems into ventures, which in other words, we go and partner with government and turn their problems, where they have every ministry, every government have their own problems. So instead of finding vendors to solve their problems, we go in and build ventures that solve their problem and then convert that ventures into a profitable venture. That's what we do. So, which is, in other words, we turn their costs into investments. We turn their vendor models into investment models. So that's where the uniqueness is in a nutshell. Well, to deep dive, there's more to it. So how we approach them with being their operating partner from day one. We don't go and start by saying we're going to be a joint venture or we're going to be an equity partners and so on. We actually go and build a value ladder with them. And the way the approach is with them by being their operating team, because they don't have any idea of how to start a venture studio or start ventures. We go and plug and play our team into that particular ministry and build the way up from 0. So we come up with our own playbook. We have our set of leaders, we have the strategy, we build the operation team, the finance team, the product team, the growth team, the legal team. And in a nutshell, we show that we have the skin in the game, where the government doesn't have to do anything. It's that we become the plug-and-play partner where they can work on their own without interrupting their internal operation, while we become a parallel team building all those ventures that is required. So this is something very important when you come with the government, when you work with the government, that has to be non-disruptive, because most of this government don't want anything disruptive, because if anything is disruptive, it's a no-no working with them. So that's a very, very important thing that you need to understand when it comes to working with government. Now, every government wants to know three things, and that's what public-private venture building is all about. Number one, it's all about how are we going to de-risk the viable ventures. Like, we have convinced them to go from a cost model to an investment model, where instead of going to a vendor and solving their problems, we've convinced them that why are you just paying to a vendor rather than build that product on your own and on that entity. That means we have to be extremely meticulous in converting that idea into reality. That means we have to de-risk their ideas into viable ventures in the very first shot. We don't have this chances, like we don't have 50 chances to make that right, because we have to get that right if we're dealing with the government. Number two is that we need to make sure that we are producing diversification of investment by converting that. So that means we have convinced them to move from ownership model to investment model, then the objective is to make sure that it is a diversification of investment for them and not another risk where they don't have the problem solved nor they have equity. The third most important thing is we need to assure them the monetization of that, which is the most beautiful part when it comes to public-private venture building, because the problems that we're going to solve for them, they already have the customers. So for example, if it's a Ministry of Transportation who's building metro stations and they're operating metro stations, if we create a ticketing system for them, then they already have the customer, which is the public already anywhere. So we don't have to go and organically create customers out of putting ads on Instagram or Facebook or social media whatsoever. It's just a plug-in thing. So if we can solve the first and the second, then automatically we de-risk the monetization, which makes it a viable venture to operate. So this is very, very important that, if you do not understand any other part when it comes to public-private venture building, but if you understand this thing, because this is what the government looks at, they want to make sure that all these three things are taken care of before even we talk about any kinds of partnership models. Now, there is a particular approach that we do, which we're going to deep dive into and explain. So there is a clear process when it comes to public-private venture building, unlike any typical corporate venture building that you can approach, where you need to be proactively going and finding out what the problem that they have. Instead of you going and approaching them, figuring out, do you have a problem? Tell us what the problem is, and we will help you to solve the problem. No, you can't. That doesn't work, because most of the government are not ready to even receive us. Most of the government are not even ready to even think about the idea about starting a venture studio or a venture building. They're like, for them, it's easy to go and find a vendor, give them money, and start building your solutions. Now, when we're going there, we need to be making sure that we're taking that proactive approach. And that's why we start with the discovery process, where we go and understand their challenges, figure out the problems that they have, and then handpick 4 or 5 ideas. That is why those are viable, and then build a proposal. Second, the proposal will be built with the solution on and how we are going to implement it. So it's again, there's different complexities when it comes to how we build that solution. It could be a build, operate, and transfer models, which is very typically followed in big government. Second, it could be joint venture models. Third, it could be retention partnership models. So there's different models when it comes to designing the financial model itself, and based on how we agree on the model, we go and set up a parallel team with the government. which we call the setup phase. And then we start to build that particular studio or the venture by co-building with the government team. And that's not the most important thing. Now, this is where the real difference is, and this is what Manoj was trying to explain in the very first minute, that unlike typically all the venture studios out there where we build the ventures to exit, when in the public-private venture studios, we build the ventures to become sustainable because there's enough income coming out of the ministry right there. They don't really care about exits. What they care about is sustainability. They want to make sure that the team grows and it's sustained and it runs as an independent company, so they can cater all the services required for that particular ministry's problem to be solved. So that's where the biggest difference is. Now, in plenty of cases where some of these ventures are they raise funds from other ministries because they're expanding within the country as nationally, sometimes even regionally. However, there's never exit talks. You can never go and talk to a government and say, listen, would you like to exit your government exit entity? No, they're never interested. So the whole focus on the models of public-private ventures is all about sustainability. And the size of these ventures are usually big because the problems are much bigger. And the beauty about it is that the scalability of the organization is directly in proportion to the market size, which they already have. So it's not something that we have to go and explore and create. It's already out there. It's all about connecting the dots and making it happen. So it's very, very important that you have to be expandable ready. You need to be expansion ready, basically. And you also need to make sure that you have access to talents and access to teams so that you can deploy resources at any given point of time to scale the ventures, because they are one of the biggest challenges when it comes to government is the size of the things you do. It's not like a small startup where you can run up with 5 or 10 people, because most of these ventures most of these government demands are so big that you need to have that high scalable models in a very short time. It could be 6 months, could be 12 months, could be 18 months. And we've seen an average 12 to 18 months where the demand for scaling is very, very high. And the last most important thing when it comes to public-private venture building is that you need to create that value ladder for the government, because not every government receives you in one door. Because every government has their own set of demands, an own way of going up your ladder, your value ladder. So we call it our value ladder. It starts from consulting and training, where we go into government and help them to understand how venture study work through going to their boardrooms and educating them, training them, and even building playbooks. And then on the second step, it could be building the venture that they're looking for, or some of them even look at creating a studio itself, where the studio creates multiple ventures. And some of the unique entities also goes into creating a venture studio hub or venture building hub, which is a combination of infrastructure, network, and innovation hub, everything at one place, which is the unique thing that we've been building. Now, every one of you out there, whoever is offering corporate venture building services, there's always a value ladder that you can create for different kinds of government entities out there. It's all about discovering what model works for you. And for us, we have seen some entities going directly to creating venture studio hub, and some entities directly going into creating a venture studio. And some, we're not interested in creating a studio, nor interested in creating a hub, but we just want you to help us build a venture. So that's one. And some at the least say, we just want you to give us a training and help us to structure a venture studio of our own, and our team will run on its own. So it's completely different, and to government, to countries. And what every one of you who's interested in building a model like this is to create your own value ladder. And each value ladder would refer to to the market that you're trying to approach. And you know what? The best part is this approach is not just for the public-private venture building, but also can be utilized for corporate venture building as well, and it works wonderfully. So that's very important to understand the value ladder, and we have multiple models in each of the ladders to approach different kinds of ministries, and we've done a marvelous job in each areas. For example, consulting and training alone, we have gone into creating builder camps with some of the ministries. We've gone into designing a management venture building program where they're able to create an innovation lab within their authority where they can come up with different ideas. And we've also come up with ideas where we help a particular ministry to design a venture studio model, and they themselves offer that to other ministries. So it's very different to ministries, and it all depends on how you would like to approach different ministries. And in terms of, again, venture building itself, you can offer that. You can offer that as an agency. You can offer that on a partnership model, depending on what's the level of acceptance when it comes to partnership. If you're successful in converting them to become a partner, that's where you can get a retainer plus an equity kind of a hybrid model. And this is why we call ourselves a hybrid venture studio. The same way is the venture studio building, where we go and build venture studios with the government, where we share common fund and we share equities, and we co-build different ventures. Now that's again, not every government agrees to that kind of model, but then there's other governments where we create funds for them, which they already have, and then we start to build their studio and operate it for them on a retainer model. So that's so it's completely different, and it's very, very important that you understand the key different approach to each ministry, and you have to prevent the different ministries because not one size fits all. Doing the similar model, we have successfully done over 20 plus ventures in the last 5 years, legal tech, ed tech, media tech, social tech, and even gov tech in the last 5 plus years. And we've also built 5 plus venture studios across different genres: government, legal, healthcare, and even more. And we built Shams Valley, which is world's first ever public-private venture studio, which is a joint venture between the government of UAE and ourselves, and where we are solving media tech related problems. We're solving media tech related problems into viable ventures, and that's going wonderful. It's been a couple of years, and again, it's a very long-term relationship, and it's a joint fund and a joint team with a dedicated board and a complete governance for that. And we also built BioWealthy, which is a wellness venture studio, which is now even managing a hospital, a series of clinics, different healthcare startups under this. And this is one of the most successful ones that we have built in the past. And again, this is a very successful model where we built a team-based venture studios. And in this, there is a hybrid model where we work with government. We also work with private entities as well. And this is a recent successful model that we have started, which is called the Venture Studio Hub model, where it's an infrastructure where by housing a team of corporate venture builders, where we bring in multiple companies into one place where we co-build with them, and it becomes an innovation hub, an innovation house where we offer different kinds of corporate venture builders.
It's 11:30.
We've done this in Dubai, and we're open since 2023, and we're due to open another venture studio hub somewhere mid of this year in Abu Dhabi. So those are some of the stories that we have, and in terms of more details on the framework and the structures, we're more than happy to discuss. I purposely kept it very, very simple in terms of understanding of how the venture studio model for public-private venture building works, and more than happy to take questions and explain more, because public-private venture building is all about compliance. It's all about compliance-based building processes, and we're also launching our new white paper on public-private venture studios, where we're publishing openly all the frameworks of how we build the templates, the mini playbook of how it can be done, and more than happy to share with all of you once it's done. I think we're launching somewhere about the 3rd week of February, and more than happy to share with everyone. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Like I'm not a person who likes to have 50 slides and talk for 2 hours. I'd rather have it very simple, understanding the framework, and then have more discussions. And that's why I kept it that way. So that's pretty much what I have for today, as in terms of slides. Now, more than happy to take questions with anyone that's here. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jazir, first of all, for the presentation. Second of all, for the novelty that you shared. Some of it I wasn't aware myself. I don't see questions at this point on the Q&A. Guys, don't be shy. Before, I have so many questions. I was afraid that we don't manage with the timing. So let's start with mine, and then, okay. Actually, we have a question with Karim, but okay, let's start from his, and then I thought mine were very important too. Karim is asking if your model can be applied also to the US, and how important is it to have contacts in the ministries or in the government? Obviously, if you don't have them, how would you have to approach the ministry?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. So you're talking about specific the US government. Well, there's, you know, in reality, in any business world, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. It does make a big difference if you know someone in the government. But at the same time, there's so many government entities out there who's actually having problems which is not solved. So if you can proactively go and figure out that problem, and then put up a prototype, and then approach them, most governments are willing to look into it. So rather than going with a proposal to figure out the problem, rather you figure out what the problem is and build a prototype, build a survey around that, and then approach the government. And that works much better than going and approaching to a government without anything. So that would be my key advice. However, LinkedIn works magically for talking to decision makers. There's a lot of decision makers out there in LinkedIn, and I personally have done magical work just approaching some of the key decision makers over LinkedIn, and then talking to them, setting up appointments, and then presenting the prototype and ideas, and it worked. And I think it can work for everyone.
Thanks, Jazir. If I may add one point just to that, to Karim's question, because we had also a session, if I'm not mistaken, last year, it could be also 2 years ago. Feel free to request the recording. I'll try to find it for you. But basically, there are also public funding, known resources, public resources for public funding, and I'm aware that there are a couple of platforms dealing with this basically procedure. So they introduce you to these opportunities, and they do the work for you as a service. Either you can do it yourself. We were hosting one of the companies like this for public funding. So let's connect. Also feel free to connect on the chat, because that's where most of the communication happens. And then I'll try to share the links. We have a question with Andrea. Andrea, if we're not connecting, we'll be happy also to connect on LinkedIn. So he's asking about the process of negotiation with the government, and they want to schedule a video meeting with some people in the Colombian government and share about this model. And they are interested to know if Jazir can also, if you Jazir can also join the call.
Would love to. Well, the reality is in most of these governments, especially the developing countries' governments, they're always looking forward for partners who can come up and help and build their government, build their country. And this is a great opportunity, because a lot of these opportunities are done by companies who does build, operate, and transfer project, like a BOT kind of project. Now, this is where venture studios and venture builders like ourselves can come up and proactively approach and open build it, because most of these government has some sort of funds already. If not, fund is not ready yet, they are going to have it ready. So it's all about how you can lock in that relationship early on, and you have to have the patience, you have to have that endurance for you to stay in the course, to making sure that you can convince them until you pass their budget, help them to pass their budget, help them to come up and understand that this project that you're proposing can really work. So there's a lot of educating process out there, rather than like a client-vendor relationship. So as long as that is done, and you have a business out there.
This is very valuable, and I guess you can have more in-depth conversations on that specific process description with Andre before talking to the government, so they have a clear understanding how it's done. And if I may add again, I would be also happy, Andre, if there are specific questions how to explain the model to the government, either to join the call or before it, feel free to reach out. We can arrange a call from the name of Studio Hub. So now Julian has a question. First of all, he's thanking you, Jazir, for your story. That's very interesting, and asking about the approach proposal of work. Is it always outside you? So you try to identify problems from the outside, build a prototype, and then have a first conversation with the government? And if so, how do you go about identifying those problems? Like, do you guess, or do you talk to the people, somehow research, and any other description?
Now, this is very tricky here. Now, when it comes to government, most of the problems are very big. And you want to make sure that you want to pick up a problem that is within your capacity to build something. You don't want to go up and build a problem for, a solution for NASA, right? Because that's, then you have to build SpaceX for that. Rather, you have to go start to look at smaller problems. And the reality is that when you're an entrepreneur, when you're a venture builder, if you have the eye for seeing the problems, you'd be shocked to see how many government has problems. As simple as that. For example, the government entities in the United States, for example, they don't even have, most of the states don't even have an automated process for renewing driver's license, for example, or creating marriage licenses and so on. Imagine you come up with a system where you can automate that and solve the problem in one state, and then sell the same solution across all the states in the US. Now, those are very small problems. Instead of thinking about big problems, there's always small problems out there that you can pick up and start to build a product. Trust me, and you'll be just shocked to see that how come nobody else ever thought about this and solved it till now. Most of these kind of things are, you still have to stand in the line in the city office and wait for a couple hours and just to renew your driver's license, and it's just ridiculous, myself, my Canadian license just got expired some time ago, and I have to mail it across to the Ontario government, get it renewed, and then get it back. Now, imagine we have an automated process for that, where you can renew it online, and there's an integration done with the Ministry of Transportation and the Ministry of the State. And so imagine that's the kind of a problem that you need to be looking at to solve.
Can we say, Jazir, thank you first of all for the reflection on Julian's question. He's one of the people who is into the data-backed. Striper is really following the data to understand how relevant is the idea. So that's why he has the specific question. And I just to clarify for myself as well, can we say that it's just the normal ID validation as in the other cases. Only in this case, it has to be relevant also to the public interest, to the government interest, and which is actually easier in a way to guess because that is more obvious instead of going, after various segments of market. So here it's more obvious, but on the other hand, it's a bit more difficult because it might be a real problem, but the government might not agree to tackle this problem. Can we somehow revise it like this?
Well, again, it's not a yes game every single time you go push the government, but the thing is, how do you approach the government? I mean, the reality is the government wants that problem to be solved. Well, now you need to look inside and figure out how do they want to solve the problem, and then it's about convincing them that how about solving the problem and still making money out of it? Would you like to create that model? Is what the first question is. If not, what about creating a solution that is owned by you? Those are the different approaches that you have to go with the government. But I don't know if any government would say, look, you know what, I don't want you to come and solve my problem. Let me just die with my problem. I don't think anybody would be saying that. So the best part is they are going to welcome you when it comes to showcasing the solutions. But at the same time, it's about how you build that partnership with them, and that is your credibility out there. That is your tactical skill that you need to try, and it's not necessarily it's going to be right in the first shot, especially corporate venture builders like yourself as Striver. And you really need to struggle and figure out the right model of approach, and then and make a conclusion there.
Thank you. Clear. But we're speaking about corporate venture building and other types of venture buildings. Can we state, Jazir, that you're a builder of venture builders in a way, and you're also in other ways, or combined with this, the entire kind of roof of your entire organization, you are using the startup studio model for venture building in some cases, and in some cases you're building these startup studios for the others.
Correct. Yes. So we build both venture studios and ventures. That's where, because some entities want series of ventures to be built, so we help them to build the venture studio. And some entities who just want a couple ventures to be done, we go and build the ventures for them. But it's really depends on what model that we've convinced the entities to go with.
My question was mainly referring to the possible future potential of also having this corporate venture building with the private venture building and with innovation, basically trying to understand if this will be possible, if governments would be also interested to work with this three-side cooperation. Is it something that you have done? Is it something that you think is possible or not? Because there is also a huge possibility within the corporates and corporate venture building.
It is highly possible, and there's a lot of government entities who are just looking to receive agency kind of services as well. So purely corporate venture building services and helping them to set it up and as a service, and then not necessarily partnership. Yes, and the reality is far majority of the government are looking forward for that kind of a service rather than partnerships.
Got it. Is there a particular why they're looking that specific path?
It's because a lot of these government entities don't have an authority to hold equities or manage equities. They don't have a provision in their books for managing equities. So they're not allowed to do that. That's why some of them goes as a separate entity, which is another government entity, and offering that services to this particular government entity. But in most cases, they don't want to get into equity play, and they just want to make sure that you give us corporate venture building service or corporate venture studio services, and we're happy with that. And they for a certain amount of money, and then we're done with the contract period, and then handover, and then Goodbye.
Thank you so much. Actually, sorry, Craig, that I'm holding your questions so long because I had specific questions in this field, and since we opened the conversation, my last question, I promise, in this before going to Craig's question, is thank you that you mentioned about the equity. That was my main, let's say, question mark. So basically, you don't go like to the normal LPs and funding campaigns and fundraising campaigns and asking for funds. Rather, you're asking the government to take your service or build for them a venture builder that can provide services for them. Is it correct?
Correct. And by the way, there is also some of the entities who've got a fund, which is like an innovation fund or education fund, but they don't want that to be managed like a GPLP model. They just want to make sure that is a non-equity based fund model where they still want us to take it and manage it and put that into these ventures. However, they don't even want equity in it. They just want to put that money. It becomes a non-equity based venture building models as well.
So basically they will become your B2B or B2G, B2G
yes.
for the ventures. Got it. Thanks. Okay, Craig's question here. I was trying to understand, wasn't quite clear for me, but maybe you may understand, or Craig can clarify later. So the government of Panama has major issues with the lack of water for the canal. I feel I may have a solution, yet my main focus is to create food growing systems. How serious are governments with feeding their citizens and having sea ranch farms to solve food shortages? And what about creating a new government and using this venture system as a way to get support from the people as to how we will solve any problems we have? For Netherlands, Canada, huge natural resources, minerals, oil, forestry, seafood, people. We need new systems to create new ways that benefit the people. If I understood it correctly, Craig is offering to create new government. I don't think the startup studio model is quite relevant here, and I'm not laughing actually. Why I had this reaction, because I knew of many network states right now that are being created. Craig, I don't know if you're part of any groups of network states, but they're quite active and trying to initiate new types of, government models together with acting government models to come up with innovation and solutions. Sorry, Jazir, do you have any comments to base?
Well, projects like this is not a typical venture study model where a project that just needs a lot of deep diving, and the model that really works for this kind of project is we call a consortium model, where you can put together different companies that can come up and solve the problem, and then you take the consortium and then approach the government and say, listen, I've got all the series of companies that's required to solve this problem. Do you have a fund? If you don't have a fund, then you set up a fund, and then you need independent fund, and then your consortium is building it, and then you're offering that to a government as a service, and then you can make different kinds of arrangements. So it's not a straightforward way of building, but that's one of the ways to build it. Unless you have government who already got a fund, is already trying to solve it, they have already set up consortium, and then you become a plug and play to that consortium and then solve the problem. However, it's a long-term game, especially because this is capital tedious, and plus again more complexities because it's the public food programs. I don't know how each government has. Does it come under food security? Does it come under public food program? So it really depends on what the program that you're going to be supporting and working with. So, but in a nutshell, it's not as straightforward as a venture study model. It's not. But then you could probably approach them on a consulting and the advisory side on the venture study model, and then eventually develop the rest of the consortium model. However, I'm not sure of what is the current market is like in Panama when it comes to food programs, and is that program really exist, or is it something that you're going to create? If you're going to create, then that's a big challenge. If it's already there, then that's another challenge of execution. So one is creation, another is execution. So it really depends on where does Panama stand. So that's the way I would probably approach.
Thank you, Desir. That makes sense. And since we spoke about the diversity of the geography, I'm interested. Thank you, Craig, also for the question. So I'm interested to know as much as you can share about the geographies of the public funding that you have experience with, like where especially you were successful. Why do you think that happened? Let's say, I don't know, one of the Gulf countries you had been more successful. Were there specific reasons? And if you can share that part of it, and also maybe there are also startup studios that are interested to connect with you for co-partnerships, to work with these governments. Also, kind of refer to that point.
Thank you very much for the question, Manush. Yes, in terms of where our strongest active market is in the UAE and the GCC, or they call the Gulf countries. It's mainly because most of these countries are going towards privatization models, and second, they're converting majority of the government entities into monetization entities. So which is indirectly in line with what we're doing. So that's one good thing. And by the way, globally, developing countries are also moving towards that direction where they're privatization of airports, privatization of railway stations, privatization of roads. They're privatizing every single thing now. So that's an opportunity out there. Now, just here, it's just not that they're ready for privatization, but they also have fun. They are more educated in the coming privatization, creating privatization project, and there's quite a lot of project that's already been done here, which is privatization, which is privatized. However, they have not seen venture studios or venture studio model, and this is where we come up and educate them about, why don't you pick up this model, doing the same privatization model where this becomes more return of investment and more stable, and plus you become an innovation authority, and you also become an industry leader by solving your own problems. So everybody wants to become a leader in what they do. So that's the reason that we're focused in this market. However, there's a huge opportunity in Africa, for example, like East Africa is moving towards a privatization, whether it's privatization of schools, schooling systems, roads, healthcare. There's a huge opportunities out there. Venture studios who are interested in public-private venture building models, I think it's a huge opportunity to go there. It's a long-term game, and I know a few people who I spoke to, and they went into East Africa, and they're now, and it's a cash market. It's not just a valuation model market, but they really literally make money from like day 5. So there is opportunity out there. So you can not necessarily hang around in the richest countries, but there's a lot of other countries out there you can go and start making money, because a lot of things are not even digitized, like bus stations and railway stations and airports, the e-visas, the tourist visas. Far majority of the world don't even have an online visa application system. Imagine you create online visa application systems and biometric systems for those small countries, and then you charge them per visa, and that becomes a private entity. Most of these governments are open for that. So there's quite a lot of opportunities out there. So it's not limited to here. Just that we are here, and we've been established for quite a while. Only because of that, we've been focusing in. However, we are going to go.
That's very inspiring and very ambitious, and I'm sure you will, because short time ago we're speaking, there were not so many questions, so many projects as there are now, and questions also. How did you get to that point? But hopefully we'll meet soon one-to-one, and I'll ask more of the questions. For now, what would be more interesting also for the participants to know, you mentioned the Zentral, which we are also discussing currently in the framework of Studio Hub, partner up and to see opportunities of expanding startup studio model and disseminating it also in the Gulf countries. So my question is how the venture studios, especially our partners, can make the use of it, of the hub, of the innovation center. What is there that is offered in terms of venture building? Any resources, anything free, anything, whatever you feel that is applicable and valuable for them to do.
So first of all, we're trying to be an R&D hub, like looking at all the collective minds in the region and having an eagle eye of all the problems that's happening here, and then creating collective minds club where we can come up and collaborate with each other and start to solve problems in different areas. So some of the areas, for example, could have fintech issues, edtech issues, social tech issues, govtech issues, different kinds of issues, or any kinds of venture studios out there could come and plug with us, and then we can open up the doors for different kinds of the projects in the region. That's what we want to do, because I don't think we ourselves will be able to solve the problem even in the smallest region here. So that was the biggest reason that we opened up this market, opened up the venture studio hub. And now that also tops up with a talent hub, co-founders hub, different events, and so on. And we're also, from time to time, we're launching different kinds of white papers on different kinds of industries, and we want to make sure there's a collaborative approach on that. So, and rather than just having a mere paper to read, we want these white papers to become a standalone document for you to go see problems and go start solving it and getting customers from that. So we want to start listing actual problems in the region, so you can just actually pick up and say, okay, go up and start approaching customer A, customer B, customer C, because it's impossible for us as a company, solving all the problems in the region. There's enough problems for all of us to solve, and that's why we decided to start a hub. And trust me, even if we have like 10 or 20 hubs in the region, I don't think that's enough.
I completely agree. Very, very valid point. And all I can add to that is that every day, literally, the world is changing, and also our ecosystem, because it has a lot to do. The startup studio model, venture building, call it whatever, because there are so many amorph models, hybrid models, new models also being born. So we really need to on one hand, keep the pulse on the market to see how we can improve ourselves if we are claiming to be one or another model. On the other hand, trying to innovate ourselves as well, to not be irrelevant, but be relevant only in all the good ways. And you mentioned the white papers before, let's say two years ago, when we started with Studio Hub, there were literally no resources. We were only us, maybe 2 or 3 more individuals or organizations. And then the startup studios really helped by their own resources. So thank you to everyone who contributed to creation of the collective content. And I'll be looking forward to your inputs. And I hope there will be especially the highlights of how to work with governments, because this is another resource that is not yet let's say fully or not even half exposed and discovered and enough, let's say, applied. So this is our money paid in taxes, and why not to use them in the most efficient ways. So yeah, thank you again, Jasir, for your time. If you don't have anything to add, we can finalize the session and close it. I don't see any more questions, but everyone is free to reach out to me or Jasir or to both of us. We can have a group call. So thank you everyone for your participation. Thank you for your time. Once again, Jasir, it was a pleasure having you here. I just wanted to remind that this was our first session of the year. We started globally with global money, global governments, and I hope that I'll see most of you in our upcoming sessions. So stay tuned, follow us on our channels to see our events, and good luck everyone. Have a nice continuation of the week.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you, and thank you, especially because we're exactly on time. I love this.
It's 12 hours.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Well, we finish at 12. Yeah.